Ever since Snow White 2025 was announced, the film has sparked heated debate among fans and critics alike. The casting of Rachel Zegler as the iconic princess and the film's bold departure from the original fairy tale sparked discussion on social media. Many praised the film for taking the classic story in a new way, while others criticized the changes, arguing that it strayed too far from the beloved Disney animation. The film has become one of Disney's most debated live-action adaptations. But that's not what we're going to talk about in this video, because we're going to watch a recap of the film. So let's get started. The story begins in a peaceful kingdom. A wise king and queen long for a child. On a stormy, snow-filled night, a princess was born, and they named her Snow White. The loving king and queen raised the princess with care, teaching her kindness and the values of goodness. They told her that one day she would inherit the throne. Snow White grew into a beloved figure among the people, admired for her kind and compassionate heart. The kingdom thrived in harmony, where both rulers and citizens respected one another. But happiness gradually faded. The queen fell ill and eventually passed away, leaving behind deep sorrow. Not long after, the king remarried a woman from a distant land. The arrival of the new queen brought drastic changes, as if the kingdom's fortune had vanished. This queen was extraordinarily beautiful and seemed to possess magic beyond that of ordinary humans. Through deception, she convinced the king that their land was in danger. The king set out to protect his people, but he never returned. Darkness fell over the kingdom as the queen's power grew stronger. She turned farmers into soldiers loyal only to her and seized all the kingdom's wealth. Not only that, but Snow White was made a servant and cast out of the palace. However, as long as the magic mirror still deemed the queen the fairest of them all, she felt no threat from the princess. The once joyous kingdom had become a place of despair where people suffered under unbearable taxes. One day while working, Snow White met a brave young man named Jonathan, a bandit who stole food from the palace to help his starving friends. Even though they fought for the people's welfare, the queen remained indifferent to their suffering. As they were talking, a hunter arrived and revealed Jonathan's identity as a thief. Enraged, the queen immediately ordered Jonathan to be thrown into the dungeon. Snow White defended Jonathan and opposed the decision, making the young man realize that she was, in fact, the long-lost princess. The queen, growing even more furious, decided to impose a harsher punishment on Jonathan. Unable to bear seeing him suffer, Snow White gathered the courage to defy the queen's orders and set him free. This only fueled the queen's wrath. She once again turned to the magic mirror, asking who was the fairest of them all. Fearing that Snow White could one day take her throne, the queen ordered a hunter to take the princess deep into the forest and eliminate her. She even demanded that the hunter bring back Snow White's heart in a jeweled box as proof. As a reward, the queen promised to grant the hunter anything he desired once the task was complete. After years of being confined within the palace, Snow White finally experienced freedom in the outside world. However, her stepmother's wicked scheme left her terrified, and she fled into the dark forest, an eerie place that seemed to have a life of its own. During her escape, she accidentally slipped into a river and was swept away by the current to an unfamiliar place. Luckily, she was not alone. A group of friendly forest animals approached her, sensing the kindness in her heart, and quickly became her new companions. They then guided her to a hidden cottage, deep within the forest. As Snow White stepped inside, she found the cottage empty. She noticed a row of neatly arranged beds, wondering who lived there. Meanwhile, a group of dwarfs who reside in the cottage had just finished their work at a diamond mine several miles away. After a long day of hard labor, they returned home, eager to rest. However, as they prepared for bed, they were startled to find a stranger occupying their home. Panicked, they readied themselves to attack, but quickly halted when they realized the intruder was a human. Snow White awoke, just as startled as they were. After explaining her situation, the dwarfs felt sympathy for her, especially upon learning that she was the long-lost princess. They insisted that Snow White stay with them for the time being until she found a way to continue her journey. Elsewhere, the evil queen once again consulted the magic mirror, asking who was the fairest of them all. She was shocked to learn that Snow White was still alive. Consumed with rage, she checked the box that was supposed to contain Snow White's heart, only to discover an apple instead. Realizing that the hunter had betrayed her, the queen sentenced him to a cruel punishment. She then dispatched her soldiers to search the entire forest, ordering them not to return unless they brought Snow White with them. Meanwhile, in the cottage, one of the dwarfs felt that Snow White had stayed too long and suggested that she leave. This sparked a heated argument among them. However, the quarrel quickly subsided when they began teasing one of their friends, Dopey, to the point of making him sad. Seeing this, Snow White stepped outside to comfort him and taught him how to whistle. As Dopey's whistle rang out for the first time, the dwarfs were stunned and amazed. In that joyous moment, Snow White taught them all how to whistle. Over time, their bond of friendship grew even stronger. During their time together, Snow White shared stories about her father, the king. Deep down, she still believed that he might be alive. Feeling responsible for finding him, she began to suspect that the bandits in the forest might have information about his whereabouts. She asked the dwarfs for guidance. Though reluctant at first, they eventually agreed to help her. After making preparations, Snow White set off alone to seek out the bandits. As she walked through the forest, Jonathan suddenly appeared and pulled her into his hiding place. With a worried tone, he warned Snow White that the queen's soldiers were searching for her. Snow White pleaded with Jonathan to help her find the king, insisting that he was one of her father's loyal followers. However, Jonathan admitted that he knew nothing about the king's whereabouts. He explained that he was merely a bandit trying to survive by stealing food to feed the starving people. Moments later, Snow White found herself surrounded by Jonathan's fellow bandits. Before they could act, Jonathan urged them to hold back, assuring them that he would handle the situation. Just then, the queen's soldiers arrived, forcing everyone to hide. Thinking quickly, Jonathan devised a clever plan and instructed Snow White to escape while he and his group confronted the queen's forces. But the princess did not run away so easily. Instead, she quickly gathered her animal friends. Just as the guards were about to overpower the bandit group, Snow White appeared, drawing their attention. Her actions created a significant distraction, giving the bandits a chance to strike back. With great courage, Snow White mounted her horse and joined the battle, helping them escape successfully. However, one of the soldiers spotted her and fired an arrow in her direction. Jonathan swiftly shielded Snow White, taking the hit himself. Panicked, Snow White rushed him back to the dwarf's cottage so he could receive help. Thanks to the dwarf's healing magic, Jonathan quickly recovered. As a token of gratitude, Snow White approached Doc and thanked him for his help. That night, the entire cottage was filled with joy as they celebrated Jonathan's recovery. They danced and sang in happiness. It was in that moment that Snow White and Jonathan realized they had fallen in love. However, their happiness was short-lived. Suddenly, the blaring sound of the Queen's Guard's horns echoed in the distance. Jonathan assured Snow White that he would return in 2 days to help her search for the king. He then left with his allies, leading the Queen's Guards away from the cottage. Unfortunately, along the way, he unknowingly walked into a trap set by the Queen's soldiers. Upon seeing Jonathan, the Queen noticed the necklace he was wearing, the one belonging to Snow White. Cunningly, she snatched it, realizing that the object could help her track down the princess. She then retreated to her secret chamber and began brewing a powerful potion. After drinking it, her form gradually transformed into a terrifying old woman. With her magic, she created a poisoned apple, devising a plan to trap Snow White in an eternal sleep, one that only true love's kiss could break. Believing that Snow White would never be saved, since the only person who could awaken her was imprisoned, the Queen immediately set her plan into motion. In the forest, the animals sensed an ominous presence approaching. However, the dwarfs remained unaware and left for work, unknowingly leaving Snow White alone in the cottage. Accompanied by a sinister vulture, the Queen, now disguised as an old woman, found the cottage where Snow White was staying. Pretending to be a kind stranger, she presented Jonathan's necklace as proof that he had been captured. Sensing something was wrong, the nearby animals rushed into the forest to find the dwarfs and warn them of the impending danger. Meanwhile, Snow White, shocked by the news of Jonathan's capture, prepared to leave the cottage to rescue him. But the old woman offered her an apple, claiming that it would give her strength for the journey. Unaware of the trap awaiting her, Snow White was tempted to take a bite. The moment she did, the old woman revealed her true identity. With a victorious smirk, she told Snow White that the king had died long ago and that all the terrible events that had befallen the kingdom were her doing. She then left the cottage, returning to the castle with a wicked grin on her face. The dwarfs arrived at the cottage shortly after, but it was already too late. Snow White had fallen into an eternal slumber. Meanwhile, at the castle, the magic mirror confirmed to the evil queen that she was now truly the fairest of them all. Elsewhere, Jonathan and the huntsman worked together to escape from prison. Once freed, Jonathan quickly mounted his horse, following the guidance of the forest animals that led him to where Snow White lay motionless. His heart shattered at the sight of her lifeless form. Overwhelmed with emotion, he kissed her with true love's devotion. In an instant, magic unfolded. Snow White awoke from her deep sleep, and cheers of joy erupted all around. As her consciousness returned, Snow White realized that it was time to reclaim her kingdom from the evil queen's grasp. She rallied her people, urging them to rise and fight together to free their land. The flames of hope, once extinguished, now burned brightly in the hearts of the citizens, and a great battle began. Snow White and her people against the wicked queen and her loyal forces. During the battle, the evil queen attempted to deceive Snow White, leading her into a trap to slay her. However, the princess was now much wiser and would not fall for her tricks again. Frustrated, the queen ordered one of her guards to kill Snow White. But before he could act, Snow White reminded everyone of how their land once flourished in peace before the queen's reign. Her words struck the hearts of the soldiers. One by one, they laid down their weapons, refusing to fight for such a cruel ruler. Overcome with rage and despair, the queen turned to her magic mirror and asked once more, who was the fairest of them all? But this time, the mirror gave her an answer she did not wish to hear. Snow White. In a fit of fury, the queen shattered the mirror with her bare hands. However, the destruction of the mirror unleashed a swirling vortex of darkness that suddenly pulled her in. Since all of her magic stemmed from the mirror, she was powerless to resist and vanished into the abyss. With the queen's demise, the kingdom was finally free. The people rejoiced and welcomed Snow White as their new leader. Not long after, she married Jonathan, and together they ruled the kingdom with wisdom and kindness. Under their reign, the land once again flourished in peace. They lived happily ever after, and this is the end of the tale.